Living Conference. And this was a free conference happening in Toronto. And I just wanted to share with you my insights that I had going to that conference. Now, the theme for that conference was that girl. And I kept on seeing it around. I was like, oh, so let me show you. So this was so I'll show more people when they get on. Um, so yeah, you know what? Let me show you. So this was it. Let me find it. So, so you can see here, this was what it was about. So let me get out of the way. It was that girl and then Audacious Faith. So Balanced Living Women's Conference. And basically, I didn't know what I was getting into. I kind of just went into it because I was like, oh, it's free. And there's just some events where I'm very led to go to. Like where when you just feel that pull. So anyways, getting into it, when I kept on hearing the theme of that girl, like got there, they give you a whole sweater saying that girl. And I kept on saying, oh, okay. Like I was very like nonchalant about it because I didn't know what to think. But then as I was in this conference, I remember thinking when I thought about that girl, I was like, well, I mean, I'm nothing special when it comes to being that girl. I felt like, well, I'm mediocre, I'm simple. Like, I don't think like I'm that girl or the girl. But then something happened. Like I had this like very cool moment where we were worshiping and all of a sudden like I was worshiping and then I got this like image in my head. And then I saw myself in this big crowd and where no one would have found me because there were so many people there. And it was like I could see like I got saw an imagery of God just pointing to me. He like pointed me out in a crowd and found me. Hey, welcome, Stickum. He pointed me out in the crowd. How are you? How's everything going? How's your weekend? And yeah, so I felt like God pointed me out in the crowd, and then he pointed to me in that crowd in this vision, and then he said, um, "That girl." Hey, Rayan. Hey, Radia. How are you? Thank you for tuning in. Hey, Kaimani. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, so I was just talking about my experience at the Balance Loving Living Conference. I literally just started talking about it, and I was just saying like, with the that girl, when it came to that girl theme, I felt very nonchalant about it. Oh, thank you. This is it. It's like a Russian manicure. So it's kind of like pinkish. Thank you so much. I've been doing it. Honestly, I recommend everyone to do it because it keeps your nails so strong. Like even when you take it off, when you do shellac and like your nails be like brittle and stuff, like not with a Russian manicure. I definitely recommend you to try it. But thank you so much, Rayan. And how are you doing? But yeah, so let me get back to the conference. And so I was struggling a lot with it because I was like, well, I've always thought I wasn't even aware of these thoughts. Like that's how God works. Like it always shocks me because I don't know why I get shocked, but like I wasn't aware of those thoughts. Like where I was like, oh, I'm just a simple girl, like normal person, like nothing special about me. And so when he gave me that vision while I was worshiping, I was like, oh, I get it. And so the night kept on going, and they're talking about audacious faith. And let me pull up my notes here. And yeah, she talked about audacious faith. And she's like, basically, it's daring, it's fearless, it's authentic. Um, it's the confidence that you have in God. It's the integrity of the word of a God based on your understanding, basically. And as they're talking, I realized I was like, I kept on getting this like so usually when I hear the sermon in my mind, I guess maybe that's how the Holy Spirit talks to me. Like I start like putting it as if I was writing it. I was like, oh, I'm that girl that's audacious faith. Like I'm that girl who survived and I'm here to testify. I'm that girl who shouldn't have lived, like didn't want to live, but I overcame it. I'm that girl who God loves so much. I'm that girl that they said something here that really got me. Wait, let me find it here. Um, and like it touched me so much where she said like, like God loves you so much that even when he's upset, like he loves you more than when he's upset. Like he'll be there for you even at your like lowest moments. And I remember I had a moment where I was crying myself to sleep at night. And hey, Andrea, how are you? And I remember I had this moment. We're just talking about my experience at the Balanced Living Conference in Toronto. It's still going, by the way, but I'm still hyped up. I was like, I have to share it with you guys. I couldn't do this and not share it with you. And oh, let me find it. It was in the notes. There's so much notes, guys. And where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Sorry, 1 second. Let me try to find it here. Oh, she said, he's too present to be upset or not there. He's the God that helps you. I love that. When she said that, she said he's too present. Like I felt like tears like popping up in me. And he's like, he's too present to be upset with you or leave you alone. Like he loves you that much. And that touched me so much. And then he said, and then she said this analogy. So this was one of the pastors, and she said, he's the God that will grab tomorrow and then give you imagination. And he'll give you imagination, and then he'll show it to you so that way you act on it in your present time so that way you can get to that tomorrow, to your future. And I was like, what? I never thought of it that way. And then I kept thinking about all the ideas I've had, like, and I was like, well, I'm not going crazy then, right? Like all these different ideas, and it's like that's God, like he's just like instilling those ideas, right? And I realized I'm like, I'm that girl who gets ideas and has like a big imagination. And I want to share with you guys because I want to remind you that you're that girl. Like you're that girl right now. Whatever that unique thing is about, you're that girl that's overcome some challenges, right? Do you like Catsy? I don't know who that is. Who's that? Let me know in the comments. Um, and it just really. Hey Tammy, how are you? Hey scary puppet. Hopefully you're real and you're not a troll. Um, yeah, and I don't know, and it was like when she said that, it just made sense. It's like you could just trust God with your future. Like it's like you don't have to worry. Like you don't have to have like these like crazy doubts. Like and like have so much anxiety. Like I have to admit, like sometimes I'll get stuck in that where I'll have this momentum and then I start overthinking like my future and I'm like, say if this doesn't happen, like say if I get stuck and basically I'll get in that motion and then I get so stuck. And then I go down this rabbit hole. And so when she like talks about that and he's like, he gives you the imagination right now from your future. So you could just act on it in the present. So you can walk into what's meant for you in the future. It's like, dang, wow. So there's another pastor called Andrea Creighton, where she really came at fire. And she's out of Atlanta. And she said, so she was talking about if the door doesn't open, you find another way. And I was like, oh shoot, isn't this validation, right? Because that's something I've been doing where I was like, okay, if something doesn't work, I need to try to find another avenue. Like I've been especially doing this for this YouTube thing. And she was like, if God says yes, that's all that matters. Like it doesn't matter if you get any no's, like from other people. If God says yes, that's the end of the story. And did you know God loves you? I do, but it's still a revelation. I think love is so broad. Like, I think God's love is so broad that I feel like sometimes for me, I don't know about other people, but I feel like sometimes for me, I can't, like, sometimes I just can't, I can't not can't, but it's so hard to wrap around like the different dimensions of his love. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, how about you? Like, what's your journey living like being a Christian? But yeah, I'm always growing. Like, it's been years. I've been like a Christian since I've been in my teens. Um, but it's been a journey. So going back to her, she talked about this. Like, when God says no, don't accept no when the answer is yes. That's it. And she talked and shared a story with her mom, how her mom was a woman of faith. And God had told her, like, this was like 20 years ago, that you're going to get a house for $500,000, whatever. That was 500,000. And keep in mind, the mom had no credit. And so they went, I think she said they moved from, anyways, I think they moved to Alabama or something like that. And when they got there, they saw the house. And she knew down in her soul that was the house that God was talking about. And keep in mind, she had no credit. So she ended up going to the creditors and she made them run her credit. And they came back and they were like, no, like, sorry, you don't qualify. And then the mother would say, run it again. And I was like, wait, what? And she told them again. And she's like, run the credit again. They came back and they're like, oh, like, no, like, you don't qualify. Like, you don't qualify. And then obviously the pastor kept explaining and she was like, no, like when God gives you the answer, yes, like you don't accept the no's. She went back a few times and then finally they were like, oh, you got approved, like magically got approved. And I thought that was so encouraging because how many times have you had doubts? Or how many times you've questioned what God has told you? Like, that's what it was about. It's like how many times you've had situations where you're like, I know God told me this, but it's not lining up right now. Right. And basically, it really encouraged me because I was like, okay, like when God tells me something, like I can trust him. I think it was just so powerful. And she went on and tell another story. Um, so she wanted to tell another story where about her sister, where she knew she was meant to be a buyer in Neiman Marcus or something like that. And at first, they got back to her sister and they were like, hey, everyone who just tuned in. I'm just talking about my experience at Balanced Living, which was a Christian conference that fired me up about that girl. It just made me see who I really was, like how I was that girl in God's eyes, and I love that. And so basically, she had got declined from that job, and so she went to her dad, and she was like all down about it, and um, she was basically all down about it, and her dad was like, "Hold on here." He's like, "Did God tell you yes?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Go back to them and call them back and talk to them about the position." And so she ended up calling them back, and do you know, all of a sudden they were like, "Oh, like for some reason, like that person, it didn't work out with that person, blah blah blah," and then she got the job. And it made me realize like how easy sometimes like we accept no when maybe like it's not meant to be a no. Like just because the first time someone says no, right, in terms of your dreams, doesn't mean like that's a definite answer. Like that's the end of the answer. Like sometimes we have to fight for what we want, especially if God has told you yes. And I just thought of many times where I got discouraged and then I kind of like pulled away. Where I was like, oh God, maybe this is not meant for me. But then I'm realizing like, no, like you have to fight what you want. Like the enemy is not going to just look at you and be like, oh, Nakia like tried for the thing that God told her and I'm just going to give it, here you go. Like, no, he's going to fight to keep you from getting that because he knows that if you get that, you're probably you're going to be a world changer, right? In your own right, you're going to be a world changer. You're going to inspire a lot of people. And I remember I got that revelation last year. And I remember I was doing these YouTube videos, like talking about my testimonial and like how God helped me, like how he brought me from my adversities and my family life to where I am now, to then share my testimony to other women. And I remember I just got this revelation where something was like, do you think it would be easy for you and it would just come like all easily. There would be no adversity, no challenges, and the enemy would just like allow you to just walk into that purpose, knowing that you'll impact like thousands of women, like women out there, knowing that you'll be telling your story to other women to encourage them. And I remember that just hit, because I'm like, I never thought of it that way. Like, if you have something big where you're inspiring something, you're inspiring someone, and you're about to impact someone, right, with your purpose, you have to know that it's not going to come without a fight. And I honestly, this conference was so like eye opening. It was the thing that I didn't know I needed. And there was a point where they talked about even like turning around your if situation. So when you're like, oh, like what if this doesn't happen? Like, God, like I didn't get married or whatever it is. Oh, like God, like I didn't get the career that I'm looking for, or I've been wanting to do my career, but like it's too late, or I've been wanting to get married, it's too late, or want a child, it's too late, or I don't know, I've been wanting to travel, it's too late. And I don't know, there was just it just rang in my ear when she was like, you're not too late, you're on time. Like, and it felt so good to hear, because sometimes I know for me, like there's times when I'm like, oh, I'm too late in this specific thing. Like, it hasn't happened, so maybe it's not meant to happen. But I was reminded yesterday, like, God's a powerful God. He's a big God. Like, and it will happen in the right time. Because who wants to have something where it doesn't happen in the right time, right? Um, and so this is exactly what she wrote. Actually, like what she said. She said, "He pulls from your future, deposits into your today, and you start seeing what's possible." I love that. Like when you take that in, like all those doubts you're having, all those ifs and buts that you say to yourself, where you're like, well, if this doesn't happen, or but this is not happening, or like what if, like all those things don't matter, because like it just reminds you, like God is working behind the scenes. Like he's not a, like when you feel like nothing's happening or nothing's changing or nothing's shifting, and you feel stuck, and you're like, um you feel stuck, and you're like, God, this is not happening, this is not what you told me, right? That's all the more why you need to like keep on going, like because he's working behind the scenes, you don't see it. And then usually, I like how she said deposit, because usually deposit mean, it's like when I think of deposits, it's something small, it's something subtle, right? So like you may not see the big picture, but like I don't know, maybe while you're like grinding in that job, or you're struggling, or like you're not making enough money or something, and you're thinking, God, like is this it for my life? Like, but there may be little deposits where he gives you a little idea, or you get this random idea where it's like, oh, why don't you learn this skill? Or you work for a job, and then you know how many stories I've heard of that, where people work these jobs that they didn't like or they didn't want to, and then all of a sudden they're using those exact skills for the very thing that they're meant to do. It's like, what if that very job is there to get you ready for what's to come? But I don't know, it just kind of like validated like how much like it's like, if I had the idea, don't even think like, don't even like doubt it. Like if I have an idea, I have to believe it's from God, and like act on it in the proper way. Obviously, like act on it accordingly. But it made me think, like it's just not worth having a doubt. Like it's like, how would a woman act with audacious faith, with faith that like when you just absolutely believe what God says He says, like. And it's like, what does that girl mean to me? And she said something where she said, it's like, I'm that girl. I am who God says I am. Like that's it. Like there's period, point blank. Like there's no like but, there's no if. So if there's no buts and ifs, why do we do that with our dreams? But yeah, I thought it was just so deep. Like I was like, oh, like this is exactly what I needed to hear. And it's like I feel like sometimes like I kind of want to hide. Like I want to like go in this like cone and just be like, okay, God, like this, here I am. But it's like, no, like you're meant to expand. You're meant to you be where you need to be, like within your unique experiences. Like you're so unique, and it's like such a waste time to like compare, because everyone has their own journey. Like I can't imagine right now like someone else comparing their life to mine, because my journey is my own. Like what I like is different, going to be different than what you like, right? um but yeah, hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm just talking about my experience at balanced living and like what that girl means to me, and trying to remind you guys that you're that girl. So that was just like a revelation I got at this conference. It was absolutely amazing. Um, and let me share this notes too. So she said, when things aren't going as planned, the if situation, which is in quotation, which is like, situations where it's not going the way you want, right? Is an invitation to move closer to God, especially when things are not planned. It's not going as planned, and it made me think like, because usually when things are not going as planned, we usually try to fix it ourselves, right? We try to be the ones to be like, oh, let me fix it, because God needs help. God needs some help, so let me try to fix it. Let me try to mess it up more and try to like make something better out of the situation. I can't tell you how many times I've done that. So when she said that, I was like, it's so true. And sometimes those are the times when sometimes you feel like you want to shrink away from God. Like, but those are the times you want to get closer. And this is something I've been more aware of. And I found that every time I've leaned closer to God, it's like I've seen God show up in such small ways. Sometimes the next day, like it's crazy. It's so powerful. But like usually the natural instinct when things are not going as planned and you're discouraged, it's like you want to like look the other way from God, because you're like, God, I don't want to show my face because everything is not going on well right now. But that's like all the more the time, best time to show up is when like things are not perfect, things are like looks a mess, and then you're like, okay, God, here you go, because this is what's happening right now. I need you to turn that around. It says here, stay with the last instruction you were given by God when things aren't going as planned. And immediately I thought back to something I God had told me um maybe 2 years ago, and I was like, okay, I have to just stick with the plan, because it's so tempting to want to change a plan, right? Like when God gives you instruction and it's not going the way you want, that's the first thing you want to do is like, God, I need to change this plan because it ain't working. We need to pivot. But sometimes it's like you just need to stay in that solitude and like just believe what he told you. Like I love that. Like that was like a great reminder for me, and maybe a great reminder for you. Um it's never too late to turn your if it's never too late to turn your if around. It's never too late. It always comes on time. And I love that, because sometimes we think it's the end. But you know what it made me think back? Think back of something that you went through that was hard, where you're like, God, my life is over. Like, it's not going to get better. Like, think back of that situation and look at where you are now. Most likely you got over it, you overcame it. But I know in a moment it doesn't feel like that. But that was just a great reminder. Like nothing stays like the same like that. Like nothing, like if you're going through an issue right now, it doesn't last forever. It's always a season. Like it never lasts and stays like that for the rest of your life. Like eventually you overcome it. Eventually you figure it out, whether it's good or bad. Like, but eventually you figure out how to get out of it, right? Um, And then she gave the scripture from Genesis 18, and she said it was a part where basically like God told Sarah she was gonna have a child, and then she laughed when she was told that she was gonna have a child, because she was like, God, I'm old, like I'm not having a baby right now, like I don't know what you're talking about. And eventually, right, because back in Hebrew, she said back in Hebrew 11:11, eventually she has a baby, right? Like they confirm that, and it made me think like, you see, sometimes we think we're too old, right? We look at our like current circumstances, but it's like, well, this is what was said, like I thought was deep. And she said, but when you can't, if you're a Christian, you can't look at your current circumstances and determine the result from that. Like you just can't look at based on like what's happening in your situation right now. Like you have to look at it from the eyes and lens of someone who believes in God and believes that he's a big God. And I thought that was so, I don't know, it was just like a great reminder, because sometimes it's so easy to look at the situation right now and being God and be like, God, this looks hopeless. Like this does not look like something's going to change. Like, let me know if any of you guys have experienced that, because I know you're listening in. Like, have you actually experienced that where you're like, God, this doesn't look like it's going to be changing like anytime soon? I know I've had many moments like that, and then God shows up, and then you're like, oh shoot. So let me tell you a story. So when I went to Women Evolve from Sarah Jakes Roberts, I went to it last year. I was actually going through a very hard time. And this was a time where I didn't have like any credit cards. I was using like all debit cards, whatever. And so when I got there, they're like, "Oh, we need a credit card, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Well, I don't have a credit card for a deposit, so that's not gonna work." And then they're asking for something in cash, but I'm like, "No, but this is the cash I need for like the trip, like so I can eat whatever." And I remember I just sat because I was waiting for a friend, and I remember I sat on the couch in the lobby, and I remember I was just thinking to myself, I was like, God, you see, like, I don't know why I'm here. Like, because I was at a very, remember, I was a very, I maybe will tell that story when I'm ready. But I was at a very low point, and I was like, God, you see, like, I don't know why you have me here. Like, my life is not going well. I'm stuck on this couch. Like, I can't even go in the room because they need a credit card. Like, what is this life? And I'm like, I felt led to be here, blah, blah, blah. And so all of a sudden, like, remember, they wouldn't allow me to go in the hotel room. And then all of a sudden, the manager just miraculously comes. And she's like, "Oh, hey, so first she's like, "Oh, can you like do cash?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I don't have anything." And so she's like, "Okay, I'll come back." She comes back, and all of a sudden she's like, "I'm just gonna let you in the room." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna let you in the room. Don't worry about it." And I just started bawling. I started crying because immediately I remember hearing God say, "Nikki, I have your back." And I was like, oh. And there was a moment where I felt so convicted, because in that moment I was telling God, "Oh, I shouldn't be here. Look what's happening." And the thing is, I was talking to God like He left me, like, and forsake me, and didn't help me or nothing. But then He turned out to help me, and then I was able to go in the room and then rest. But it was at that moment where I was like, "Oh my God, I like should have trusted God even more and believed that He was gonna do something." But when He said, "Nikki, I have your back," oh, I just felt that in my gut, because at that moment, like, you could say it like it is. Like, I wasn't the best Christian. I wasn't like, oh my God, I wasn't like speaking in tongues and like praying hallelujah. I felt so defeated, and I was like, oh my God, like, I have to trust God more, because literally He's your daddy. Like, He's your daddy and you're His little princess. Like, that was my reminder there. And I don't think ever since that happened, I've never went to that depth where like I went down that road with God like as much, because now I remember that. But it's like sometimes you have to remember like God has your back. Like, even in a moment, right, where you don't, maybe at that very second you feel like God's not there. Like um you feel like God's not there, and you feel like the world's crashing down and everyone's against you and it's not working the way you want. And like that was the moment where it showed me like, no, God's there. And I had many other moments. I would love to share that story in another video, but it's so vulnerable to share. But I'm curious to know any of you guys watching, like, if you had any like testimonies like that where God showed up unexpectedly, where you're like, oh my God, like He did this, like Daddy did this. Have you had anything like that? Um, and that wasn't my only moment. Um, but it's just like a reminder, like what you're seeing in your current situation doesn't mean like God most of the time will use people like to help you. And I think that's what happened is maybe He spoke to her, like she had a thought and she's like, no, I need to help this girl. right? And then she came to me like, but I know it was something spiritual. Like it was, I knew it was because when I heard his voice say that, and he's like, "I have your back," I was like, "Dang," because there's been many times where I felt alone. Like I felt like, oh God, I'm out in this world, out like fighting all like my like issue, like you want to say demons, like fighting everyone on my own alone, just fighting everyone alone, and like having my own like having to just fight everything alone. And sometimes it's nice. It's a nice reminder to remember, like, okay, I got this. Like I'm not alone. Any of you guys had that, like a testimony of God of how He helps you in life, like and helps you move forward? Let me know in the comments. I would like to read your stories because it's encouraging to me. Um, so yeah, like just going to this conference is like really like solidified my walk with God. Like it really solidified like what I've been going through and just to keep on going and like not give up. Like and like believe like if like the fact that God said yes, I have to keep on going. Like it's not a option not to, because if God is stirring the pot, there's no point of giving up, right? Right now, right? Right? If He's stirring the pot, like, and you give up too soon, like you're gonna miss out, like on that testimony. But the good thing about God is, like, even the days. Hey, Keisha, how are you, girl? How are you? I've been just talking about my experience at Balanced Living Conference. I don't know how long you've been listening. Um, and just to share my experience about that girl. Um, Yeah, so yeah, I was just sharing the experience about that girl, because that was their theme. So this was it. Let me show you. Let me show you the picture. So this was like the little tag I went to in Toronto. Do you see it? So basically the theme was audacious faith, balanced living women conference, and I was talking about um basically when I first went. Let me take this off. So when I first went to the conference, I had this in my mind where I was like, oh, like I was very nonchalant about the topic. And I was like, yeah, it was fun. But it was like obviously God showed up, right? And I was very nonchalant about that topic. About that girl. And I was like, why do you keep on saying this? Like, why is that a theme? And I was like, oh, I'm just a simple girl, God. I don't understand what they're talking about. And I was like, I'm a simple girl, mediocre, normal, whatever. And I remember as I was doing the worship, I got an imagery, like I got like a vision, and I saw myself in a crowd that no one would have found me, and then I felt like God like pointed to me, and He saw me, and He said, "You're that girl," and I don't know, everything just clicked, and I was like, I understand. And all of a sudden, I was putting the pieces together, and this was throughout the conference, by the way. And I was like, "Oh, I'm that girl with audacious faith. I'm that girl that survived and testified. Like, I'm that girl that overcame adversity. Like I'm that girl that Jesus loved so much that like in my very down moments where I had no strength, He showed up. Like I'm that girl, and that story can keep on going. And I just wanted to share that to people, like, because sometimes, sometimes we downplay ourselves, and I was like, I'm that girl that's daddy's princess. And so it just kind of just added up, and I was like, I never thought of it that way, and it wasn't a thought that like yeah, right? It was a revelation, though. It was my own revelation. They didn't really preach that. And they're talking about audacious faith, but it was just a revelation. And I guess that was the point of it, right? They want to show you that you're that girl. And she said, you know what? She did say a line where she was like, "You are who God says you are. You're that girl." And I was like, I love that. You, period. Like, there's no ifs and buts, period. Um, and she went to talk about like when you're going through if situations, like what do you do? So it was like, like that's the time to get closer to God. So I was just talking about like, so that was really the topic, and it was like that's the time to get closer to God. Like that's the invitation. She started giving examples of Sarah, like when it feels like, oh, it's too late, like, or there's something you're dreaming about and you're like, oh, like I don't know if this is gonna happen anymore. And she started telling the story of Sarah, when the angel came and told Sarah, hey, you're gonna have a baby, and she laughed. In Genesis, what was it? Genesis 18. And I just related that to so much because lately it's been something I thought about where I would tell God, oh, I'm too old now, like, and I'm not that old, but I feel old sometimes. I feel like I'm 60 with the life I've been through. um I feel like I have a walker or something, and so I'll tell God, oh, I'm so old now, like, is there more purpose? um and like you said, yes, I love when we think the title won't resonate and then it blows our socks off. Yes. Yeah, exactly. It was one of those, I didn't get it, even all week. Like, they're sending like email and I'm like, I don't understand what they're saying with that girl. Like, I don't know what they're talking about. But that's how God works, right? Like, you feel led to go. I just felt led to go to it. It was like so random. Someone invited me and I was like, I just felt very led. I even like changed around my schedule. It was that type of thing. And I know why. As it's the thing I need to hear. And I don't have you been to a rally? Like, apparently they're having a rally today. And I was like, okay, if last night was lit and that was it was basically just for young adults. I can't imagine today. Like, because they're calling it a rally. And so the next topic, they actually have it online, by the way. Um, that you can watch. I can always share it if you want to, but so basically, the next one was talking about, oh, if there's a way, let me find a topic. So you've been to a high school pep rally. You said nope, never been to a rally outside of a high school pep rally. So you've been to one. What was it like? Cuz I don't know if it's Christian or not, but I want to get an idea what this is because I can't imagine if it's from the perspective of Jesus in a Christian conference setting. So I'm excited. I wasn't actually gonna go today. I was like, oh, I'm gonna rest, da da da. But I'm like, no, like I should just be in, just soak in Jesus. Um, but yeah, let me tell you. So the next topic was and I go over it again. Don't accept no when the answer is yes. So basically, the whole theme of her name is Andrea Creighton, and her whole theme was if a door closes, find another way. And I think a lot of it validated for me because I was like, oh, this is something I've been doing. Like, it's like when I get an idea, it sounds like a game. Like when you go to like, oh, here's the Raptors in Toronto. So when you go to a basketball game, they'll be hyping it. And I'm not into basketball, by the way. But when you'd go there, you'd be like hyped up, and then there's like the energy, like everyone's like energetic. So now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder if it's kind of like that. A lot of fun, music, mingling, hyping up the crowd. Yeah. So I will tell you guys how it was. But yeah, that's what she was talking about. Is like you try a different door, and I thought it resonates so much about. It was just a great reminder. It's like if don't accept no if the answer is yes from God. And I think that just hit for me because how many times do we doubt ourselves or we like tell ourselves something different than what God says that's completely contrary to what God says. Um and she went on to tell a story where she said her mom is basically a woman of faith and like a very strong woman of faith, and she said that God had told her, hey, you're gonna buy a house, right? And so what happened is they moved, I think it was to Alabama, I keep mixing it up. But they moved to Alabama and she saw a house that was 500,000. And here's the kicker. The mom doesn't work. Like they're married, whatever. Her parents are married. The mom doesn't work. So that meant that she had no credit. But God told her, hey, that's you're gonna buy a house. So she saw the house and she was like, that's mine. So they went to the creditor and obviously, right, because she had no credit. So the creditor is like, sorry, we can't do it. And guess what the mom did? The mom kept on telling the creditor, run it again. And obviously the crowd in the church was getting hyped up because I was like, okay, I'm thinking I'm getting the point. So they did it again. They ran the credit again. And then they came back, they're like, sorry, we can't do it. You have no credit. And then guess what happened? The mom kept on telling them, run it again. Until eventually they came back and said, hey, like it went through, like you're approved, blah, 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 and they got the house. And I remember hearing that and I'm like, no way. And it's like, wow, like that is powerful because I was thinking of all the times. I've doubted God. I'm being honest. Because I'm like, that's some serious audacious faith. Like I was like, I want to have that type of faith. Like when God tells me something, like it's like I don't want to even have like any doubt or even like be like, oh, what if da da da? None of that. Like when I heard that story, like that was so motivating. Even though it was 20 years ago, I forgot to mention that it was 20 years ago. Like especially right now, I mean, not everyone has a home. I mean, for me, I'm kind of like indifferent about it, like, because I have my own opinions, but there's a lot of people who want homes that can't get it, especially in Toronto. I think it's like the second most expensive city behind New York or something like that. And I'm like, okay, so if this woman with no credit got it, like, how much more? Like, I don't know. I thought it was crazy. I'm hearing that. Like, it just expands your mind because you're like, it's like God's so big. Like, he's more, like, sometimes I feel like sometimes we put him in a box because, like, we know he's big, but, like, we kind of, we put him as a person on earth here. We, like, treat him the way we think about other people in our situations that we forget, like, he's a big God. If he tells you you're going to get something, you don't have to worry about the house. Like you don't have to worry about a house. You just walk in faith. That's it. She even said this like quote where she said, sometimes it doesn't make sense, but you have faith. And I was like, ooh, it doesn't have to make sense to other people. Like it doesn't have to make sense because if you have faith, it's faith. That's it. Like that's the end of story. Like that is it. Like there's no doubting about it. But yeah, he will show you. He will show up for you just as much. We limit him with our human mind. Yes. Yes. But yeah, he never seems to amaze me. I'm always shocked to know how much God is in my mind, especially when I go to conferences like that because I'm like, this pastor does not know anything about me. And how did she talk about my whole situation? It was one of those moments. But yeah, I always just like seeing that. Have you been to any conference lately? He was so yeah. So yeah, that's just how I feel, God. I just feel lighter. I feel excited. And I'm just like I'm ready for the rally tonight. And see how it is. It did go late, but it was just so like refreshing to hear something, cause especially when you know, like, okay, you're going through situations where you're like, okay, but God, you said this, but I don't see it yet. Like, I don't know if it's gonna happen or not. But now it's like, no, I'm having that audacious faith. Like, it's just, yeah, me too. Like, I like a great conference. I don't go all the time, but when I get the opportunity, I do. Like, I've been to Woman Evolved. That was the last one I've been to. Where I shared my testimony here just now, but just talking about how God showed up in that trip. That's a whole I want to do a whole nother video of my whole testimonial, but it's just very vulnerable. But yeah, like there it's very rewarding. Um yeah, I love a great conference. Yes, thank you. So yeah, that's my day today. I just wanted to share little insights and like and you know what she even talked about is even friendships. And like actually both of them spoke about friendships. I know we were talking about this topic. And so the first like pastor talked about how a lot of times people get down, right, from their friendships, like especially when it breaks apart, all that stuff, which is understandable. And she said the reason that is a lot of times we put all our trust in our friendships and we don't put it in God. And she reminded us that it was like basically Jesus is the only one that you could trust that to not like break your heart. And I was like, oh, yeah, yes, I know. And I'll get better. I'm thinking, you know what? My goal, I will go back and watch the live I got online. Like, no worries. Um, but you know what I was thinking? Like, this month I wanted to just focus on like getting on live every day. Because obviously I enjoy it. But I wanted to just focus on that. But I think like the for the 60 days, like once it gets to 30-day mark, I will set up a time. So maybe it's like a weekly schedule. So that way people know when I'm going on. For now it's okay. Like I go on and then people catch it when they catch it. And I think YouTube pushes it as well once it's done, which is great. Um but yeah, so there's just a lot. Like she was talking about friendships and Yeah, exactly. I was like, no way. And it made me feel better, right? It made me see like this is why I get hurt when it comes to friendships. Right? Like, well, not a lot of friendship. I'm acting like I'm getting hurt every year, but you know what I mean. But it kind of gave you a new insight because sometimes you don't realize like how much you're putting that friendships on a pedestal. Like we crave connection, but sometimes we're craving connection from the wrong thing. Like I realize like friendship should be like something extra. Like it should not even be something you depend on because seasons change. Like, girl, she was like, it was crazy. Like, even the second preacher started talking about it, and I'm sure they didn't talk about their sermons. And she talked about how, like, she talked about offense actually when it comes to friendships, and she talked about if you don't see that person the way God Jesus sees them, it's offense. And I was like, oh my God, that's so deep. Like, she's just talking about offense, and she's like, that's not the way Jesus would be to that person. And she did talk about having good people around you. Like you want someone that's like when it comes to the like your friendships, she's like you want people who are strong like believers around you. Yes, you're gonna have friends that don't believe in Jesus, but the people who you really want, like the closest people in your life, are the ones that are gonna push you. Like the days where you don't feel like keep on, like you don't want to keep going. Like she's like you're stronger together than when you're in solitude. And she was like, I never heard someone talk like this, to be honest. It was very bold. And she's like, we live in a world where people have this, like, all this anxiety around people, like, oh, I can't be around people. We live in a world where we're like, oh, I just want to be like by myself. And she's like, then eventually it becomes all about you. You're just talking about you. And I was like, dang. Like she's calling us out because that's the comfort zone, right? So then you just want to be by yourself. But that's when the enemy comes, is when you're in your solitude and you're by yourself and you're trying to fight it alone. That's your weakest point. But if you have people around you, they're there to remind you of who you are, especially, or give you a word that you need to hear. And I was like, oh, that's so powerful. It's like relationships are so perfect, so important. I mean, right? Anyways, yeah, they started talking about it. Like they talked about. I think it was so relatable. They did a really good job. Um, and just reminding you not to be around people with a lot of fear. Like it's just like you just have to be careful who you're around. Like you have to be very protective of that. But still be making friends. But yes, yeah, like that was, there's so much, but um it just made me want to like just be like even a better Christian. Just love more, like treat people the way like Jesus would treat them. You know, obviously validate my feelings, but I just think it's important to be there for people. Um, and it's important to show up to things like this because you never know who needs to hear it. So, yeah. She said this here. I was looking at my notes. That's what I'm looking at. She said, oh, with isolation, you'll survive, but you won't thrive. And I'm like, ooh. When she said that, I was like, ooh. So it's like you can survive being alone. You can survive not having friends. Like you could definitely survive. Like you're not gonna like die tomorrow without any friends. But I just believe it'll be harder. And it's very true. Like all the times I've had anxiety, like or like it's when you're alone until you talk to someone about it, and then they could like help pull you out. But it's like you won't thrive as much. That's why they say get into communities. Like I was reading this business book. You'll be We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rogers. You should read it, by the way. It's so good. It's actually beyond just talking about money. Like she goes into the history of Black people and like where they were financially and all that stuff. But she talks about that, like being a part of a community, like people that are just like you, so that you can grow from a business sense. But that's something like I've always done, like being part of masterminds and all that. But I think a lot of people don't know that. It's like community is like it's a pillar because I find it sets the bar. So it's like you're around people like who are very high achievers. You're more likely to want to thrive to that. Like it's just, and then your mindset changes because everyone around you is like that. It's kind of cool. Um, but yeah. So yeah. I think I'm gonna leave it here because it's been 50 minutes. Um, but I will see you guys tomorrow. I'll update you on the rally. I think I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to post like maybe 10 minutes before I go live, so then it gives everyone a chance. I wonder if it sends you a notification or does it just do it late? How's that going? I'm just curious. I wonder who's the second person watching. Say hi. How are you? But yeah, okay. I'll leave it here. I was just curious. No, no, it sends notifications. Okay, so I guess it just depends on if you're around the phone, like or not. Okay, I'll still send it and see. Eventually, if I get an email list going, it'll be easier, right? Because you can just email people and tell them, "Hey, I'm here," type thing. But it's in the works. It's in the works. All right, girl. Until next time, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.